Hi, listeners. This is a quick thank you for listening and for your ongoing support. If you're enjoying the program, please consider clicking the follow or subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It really helps us out. There's no better way to support us than doing that or sharing the show with a friend, colleague, family member, or any new or expecting parent in your life. It's totally appreciated. On with the show. Hi, I'm Sarah Trott, and welcome to the Fourth Trimester Podcast. I'm a new mama, and this podcast is all about postpartum care for the first few months following birth, the time period also known as the fourth trimester. My postpartum doula, Esther Gallagher, is my co-host. She's a mother, grandmother, perinatal educator, birth and postpartum care provider. Fourth trimester care, our topic, is about the practical, emotional, and social support parents and baby require. And importantly, it helps set the tone for the continuing journey of parenting. Hi, I'm Sarah Trott. I am your host of the Fourth Trimester Podcast, and we are going to talk about feeding your baby and early childhood nutrition. I have a great guest with me here today. We are talking with Argavan Nilforoush, and this topic is so cool because it's like one of those topics that really touches on every parent's experience. Feeding and nourishing your baby, especially when there are specific dietary concerns. So we can talk about some of those too. And so a little bit more about Argavan, our guest. So she is a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and she is based in the San Francisco Bay Area. Argavan brings years of experience working with families, infants, and children across both hospital and outpatient settings. She founded Baby Steps Nutrition, where she offers individualized support to help children thrive, from addressing picky eating, poor weight gain, food allergies, to maternal lactation nutrition. And as a mom herself, Argavan knows firsthand the challenges and questions that come with feeding little ones, especially during the critical fourth trimester and beyond. So whether you're worried about growth or starting solids or simply navigating all the conflicting advice that's out there, today's conversation will offer guidance, reassurance, and practical tips. So let's get started. Welcome, Argavan.
Thank you for having me, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. I've been a guest on your show. You have a podcast as well. So we'll link to that, and everyone should go listen and follow your show as well. It's wonderful. And so go ahead and introduce yourself in your own words.
That's always the toughest question, right? I feel we can answer most other questions, but who are you in a nutshell? Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm Argavan Nilforoush, as you said, registered dietitian. My main experience has been in pediatrics. I'm currently in long-term care, which is a complete change of scenery for me, but I'm loving that because I think understanding nutrition across the lifespan brings so much wisdom and expertise and knowledge. So I'm loving that as well. But I do love working with families. That is always going to be my passion, first and foremost. I launched the private practice when I was transitioning out of acute care because as a mom, my children came first, and I just found it really difficult to try to juggle both. So I wanted the best of both worlds. I wanted to be a mom first, but then I also wanted to keep up to date and see my clients on the side, and so build on that practice as my kids got older. Here we are now. And then the podcast was just purely a passion project. It was 2020. I needed to do something. And the blessing for that for me has been just connecting with people all over the world because physically I can't be there. So this gives me a great opportunity to connect, learn. I always say, learn for myself first, personally, and then be able to apply that professionally too. Because there are so many different angles you can go about when you work with people. And the more knowledge that you have, the more open you are to other experiences and expertise. I feel the more well-rounded practitioner that you could be.
Right. Yeah. The combination of listening to yourself, gathering knowledge, putting together what makes sense for you in your situation. Love that. Really appreciate that. And would you be open to talking a little bit about your own fourth trimester experience?
Yes, so I didn't even know what fourth trimester was till I had my first child. And having worked with kids, having been a dietitian, I had taken courses and I've taught breastfeeding to new parents, but it was not until I became a mother that I would say was the most humbling, transformative experience. I remember the day that the nurse packed everything up And I looked at this little infant and thought, oh my goodness, I have to take her home and raise her myself without 24-hour care. And while they tell you that it goes by quickly and embrace every moment, it is absolutely the hardest time, challenging time in life. And I think those are the things that we should acknowledge, both as practitioners and as parents. And this is where support is so crucial and it's so undervalued. And just the term, it takes a village. I think, and I say this to every single mom, don't be afraid to ask for help if someone offers help, right? It is in our genes to say, no, I'm good. Thank you so much, and be strong, but just allow whatever help comes your way, because you are raising a human being. It is the hardest and yes, most rewarding job in the world, but it is not meant to be done alone and certainly not in isolation. So I would say those are the key words: transformative and humbling. Yeah, you think you knew things until this little person came into your life and you became the greatest learner of all time because of your little one.
100%. Yeah, I like the fact that you're highlighting the fourth trimester wasn't even something that was on your radar. I've heard that so many times from lots of different people. I think that's not an uncommon experience. And I appreciate you sharing the points about asking for help as well. And for those of you interested in thinking through and planning your fourth trimester, we do have some journal prompts and a little exercise that you can download for free, and check that out too if you're kind of learning. If you're in the space where you're pregnant and you're just learning about this and wondering what we're even talking about, that's a good
And I love
resource
that you
for
have a whole podcast based on this, because something else I learned is you're never prepared. You can take all the Lamaze classes, maternity classes, read the articles online, follow your favorite influencer, but it's really not until you have your baby that you have all these questions, right? And so I love that you have this podcast and you bring on experts, because it is really such a crucial time. And yes, it goes by quickly, but it also feels endless when you're in it. So to have the knowledge and be empowered is so important. And so I love that there's a whole focus just on what those 3 months postpartum look like, both for mom and baby. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is so much to know, like even on our topic on nutrition and nourishment, there's so much we could talk about here. We'll try to cover a lot. We'll see what we can cover for everyone. And so just talk to me a little bit about kind of going into this area. Like, what are some of the dietary concerns that are the most common that you see in newborns and young infants during the fourth trimester? And how should parents start addressing them?
I would say the most common challenge is gassiness, fussiness. Almost every parent will say, is this normal? My baby does this. It's really stressful, which it is. And so the question then becomes, what's normal? And then when should you seek professional help? And my rule really, when it comes to this, is really simple. You have to be able to trust your own instinct. You know your baby best. If it is going on for a long time, the number one thing is if your baby is not gaining weight. So as a dietitian, we really do focus on, because if the baby is not maintaining nutrition, then they're not able to grow and develop. And so those are the key areas of development. And so we really want to make sure that they're gaining weight. And if they're not gaining weight, we have to look at the why. There could be oral motor issues, could be, tongue tied. There could be allergies. Like, those are all the things that we never expect families to try to investigate and diagnose. This is why there's experts out there. So if you have any questions, if something just seems off, that is not normal, despite multiple advice that you're going to get from people, definitely check in with your pediatrician, and there are a wealth of resources. So you are not meant to do this alone. But I do hear gassiness, fussiness being the number one issue where families are just really struggling, and they ask themselves, well, like, is this going to be over? Is this going on for a long time? Cluster feeding, right? Those are all the things where the baby is a little more demanding than usual. So families often ask, well, what is this? So understanding, what's a normal weight gain? What are the developmental stages? When is cluster feeding expected, right? Not all babies fit into this mold. But those are the things that if you know and you understand, at least when you're going through it, you can feel a little more empowered. And then if you feel something is off, definitely reach out.
Yeah, definitely. And what about getting second opinions too, right? If you feel like you're not being listened to?
Yes. I always say one of the most important relationships you're going to have in your life is with your pediatrician. You have to be able to ask questions openly in a non-judgmental format. And if you feel that you're not being heard or seen, this is where it's important to look and find that right fit. because this is a time where you're exhausted, you're stressed out, you're going to question yourself. I mean, we all did. And so you just want to make sure that the person is able to answer your questions in a calm, professional, with evidence-based information. And if that's not happening, then there are other people that you just have to go and find, because it's so important for you and for your baby.
And then how do you work with parents? Are you getting referred by the pediatrician or the other way around? Are people coming to you independently and then how does that work?
So being in the community, I do have an online platform. There are people that know about me and my work. So it's a lot of word of mouth, someone who may have had a baby. I am also connected with a lot of pediatricians in the area. So if they're looking for someone to work with their patient outside of the medical office, they will refer them. But it's sort of anywhere and anywhere. So I will do events where then people will get my information. It'll be, again, like word of mouth. Another client may refer me through a friend. Someone may have come across something that they saw through my podcast and realized that, oh yeah, she also is a pediatric dietitian, so I can work with her. So I would say a lot of different ways that people find me.
Yeah. Okay. So you might be getting referred or just self-discovery, people who want to know more and are kind of seeking more help and information. Yeah. Sometimes the doctor visits can be in and out, right? And you don't get to go as deep or as far as you want on a certain topic, or you feel like your time is better spent with them on other things. So that's really interesting. Okay.
Yes.
So then, you'd mentioned like gassiness, fussiness, some of those things, cluster feeding, like common concerns. Like, how do you tell the difference between something that is like a typical, I want to say normal, more of a typical concern versus something that is more of a serious issue?
Yeah.
How do you tell the difference, and what are some of the flags to look out for?
Something I say is, if you feel like it's going on for a while, the more documentation that you have, the better it is to be able to use that information for us as experts, right? So with babies, the ins and outs. So how much is the baby taking? What diapers, bowel movements. So i.e. poopy diapers. And then, if you have a scale at home, for example, the before and after weights, those are all really helpful. The sleep schedule. So the more information that we have, the more we're able to work with you. But if you don't have any of those things, and really, I say, if it feels endless and it feels stressful and it's causing, postpartum blues and depression, and you just feel like you don't have control over the days, those are the times I would say, absolutely don't wait and just reach out to your pediatrician. And if you don't feel comfortable with them, certainly, there's resources in the community that you can go for postpartum care. Like, I think your podcast is another great tool. It's sort of a one-stop shop. You've done filtering through the noise. There's things out there that I think are reputable, but that are also very helpful.
Yeah, because more of the serious topics are like failure to thrive or like real food intolerances, allergens, things like that, right?
Yes. And those are the things where the earlier that those could be discovered and investigated, the better, because there are things like if the baby is not growing, right? It's not just a feeding issue. I mean, it could be where you need to work with a feeding specialist, but it could be an undiagnosed allergy. It could be a tongue tie. So those are the things that, requires a professional to look into. So with allergies, for example, if you're getting hives, there's blood in the stools, there's, inability to breathe right after you've eaten a meal. Those are not the times that you want to wait. You want to seek professional help right away. And then there's other things that may not seem so obvious, but, it could be something to do with the stools. It could be an intolerance, right? And so as a new parent, there could be a whole bunch of things. And of course, if you go on Google, it'll give you 10 different diagnoses. But it's better not to do that, because your pediatrician will have your entire birth history and your child's history. And they'll be able to better guide you versus, a neighbor or Dr. Google or ChatGPT for that matter.
Yeah, for sure. Trusted resources, very important. So when it comes to maternal nutrition during breastfeeding, what are a few key foods or habits you recommend to support both mom's health and baby's health?
Okay, this isn't going to be dietitian specific initially, but I'm all about mom has to eat. So regular intervals, don't go through long periods of time not eating. And hydration is so, so key when it comes to breastfeeding. Often moms will say, well, I didn't used to drink much water before. You have to make sure that you're drinking enough when you're breastfeeding, especially. So my advice is to get a water bottle with a straw. And that puts you in the habit of, it's easily accessible. You can grab it with one hand, right? And psychologically, drinking out of a straw is just easier than having to remove a lid and just tilt the cup. So number one, water bottle with a straw. And that's like a great gift that you can gift to new parents too. It goes a long way. Number two is, as I mentioned, making sure that you eat enough. A lot of the times we're focused on the baby, we're focused on everybody else. We're not paying attention to how often we're eating. And then when we become hangry is when disaster happens. So eating enough, eating regularly, and hydration are the top three. Now, if we really want to focus on nourishing mom, because that's so important, there are the key iron-rich foods that we want to focus on, protein sources, right? Like meats, legumes, omega-3 fatty acids from salmon, chia seeds, walnuts, complex carbohydrates, because we know the more fuel that we give ourselves, especially when we're feeling the most depleted, the better that we could be for our baby too. And, if you have a toddler, other kids, other responsibilities in the house. So it has to start from mom first. Aiming for just color, right? So if you want to simplify it even more, are you eating enough different colors on your plate? So making sure you have the reds, the yellows, the orange, green, right? So if you don't want to, it's hard to focus on a specific, well, I don't like spinach. That's okay. Pick another green vegetable. Fruit is absolutely okay. We're getting fiber, we're getting nutrients. And again, it's something that you enjoy. And we want to make sure that mom is fed best. So we're not focusing on perfection. We're just focusing on nourishing with rest and support and compassion. That would be my biggest advice.
Thank you. Yeah. Eat like the rainbow. I love that saying. It reminds me, how many colors do I have on my plate?
And just
so good.
It, but it also goes such a long way too.
Yeah. And it's delicious.
And it's delicious. Yeah.
We eat with our eyes. It's so fun to put together a great charcuterie board and you've got all this great stuff.
Yeah. And that's another great gift for mom, right? Is just a meal train or dropping off meals for those first few weeks. If people say, well, what's something that I can get mom? That, right? Because if she's fed and she's able to take care of her baby, I think that's like the biggest gift of all.
So I love your name, Baby Steps Nutrition. What are some steps then that families can take with, say, picky eating?
Yes, that's another big topic. So, and this is, again, I go back to if there's not a medical indication where picky eating requires more investigation, right? Because we want to be careful. It always comes with a caveat. So if the child isn't growing, if there's other issues going on, that's definitely another issue where we don't want to just call it picky eating, because picky eating is also a very common term that a lot of people use. But on the whole, the general, it's a lot of patience, right? And again, having compassion for yourself and your child. Feeding is a journey. Sometimes we forget that as adults. We want a quick fix. We want to do all these things to solve a problem overnight. But the way I remind families is you want to raise happy, healthy eaters as adults, right? So if they're a few days old, a few weeks old, what does it take to get there? And it's a journey. It's a step-by-step process, right? They're going to go through their own developmental stages. We're going to go through our own triggers and times where we're feeling stressed out, right? We have to understand our own relationship with food and the things, the messages that we grew up with. And are we then projecting that onto our kids? So if we are able to be relaxed, if we are able to trust that our children know that they know to make the decisions that they need to for their own healthy mind and body, that's a big step. Now, it's not easy to do. And the younger the child is, obviously, the more support and the more influence that we have over them. But something I go back to is Ellen Satter's division of responsibility. I still use this to this day, and my kids are older. And what does that mean? Is our job as parents to provide the food for our kids. So the type of food and the timing of the food. But it is our children's job to decide how much they're going to eat and what they're going to eat. And that sometimes can come with a lot of stress, right? Because we want to be able to control every situation. But when you are able to step back and just expose your child to these foods in a calm, peaceful environment, they then learn to trust their own hunger cues. They learn to trust their own food preferences. And they learn to trust just when it comes to how much do I need to eat to feel satiated? When do I need to walk away? When am I going to eat more because I'm going through a growth spurt versus when am I going to eat less because I just had different calorie needs during that stage of my life. So those are the things that we need to do step by step, right? Baby steps to get to a point where then our children have that healthy relationship with food. And again, if you feel that you're struggling, if this is something that's not working, it's creating a lot of stress and anxiety for you and your family and your home environment, then there are experts that can help you with that.
Right. Yeah. It's developing that early relationship with food, which starts with learning solids, right? So what would you say are some initial steps for introducing solids?
Yes. Well, there's different methods out there. So we have the traditional spoon feeding, which a lot of us grew up with. And then there's what's called baby-led weaning. And whichever method that you pick, it's really about, again, what is that healthy relationship your child is going to develop with food? So you can start in any order, right? There's no longer that traditional thinking of it has to be rice cereal. If anything, actually, those have changed now, right? We have options, we have variety. There are a lot of benefits to starting other foods over other foods. So those are the things you can start however you feel comfortable, but your baby has to be developmentally ready. Now, once you start, then yes, introduction to solids. It could be whatever method that you choose to do. And depending where your baby is, every baby develops at a different rate. There are things that you can do to obviously make mealtime more pleasant, right? So allowing them to experiment, they're going to get messy. Those are all good things, right? We want them to play with their food. We may not want them to play with their food when they're 15, but then we do want them to play with their food when they're 6 or 7 months because they're developing that curiosity. And it is going to be a time where you're not going to get it right and they're not going to get it right. But the time will come where they will get it right. And you will be proud of yourself for getting them there. But in that moment, again, being relaxed, enjoying it, right? Just sitting with your child, talking with them, making sure there are no distractions, offering them these beautiful variety of foods, the exposure, and just letting them have fun with it and letting them have that positive association at mealtime with their loved one. And that goes such a long way.
You talked about developmentally ready. What are some of the cues for that? How do we know?
Yeah. Number one is they have to be able to sit upright because if they're flopping all over the place, then it's also not safe for them to start. So a lot of pediatricians will say 4 to 6 months. For me, ideally closer to 6 months because digestively too, you want them to be ready. You don't want to flood their systems too soon. But again, this is based on family and pediatrician. So I generally don't make blank statements. But on the whole, there are things you want to look for. So are they showing interest in food? Are they able to sit upright? Right. And so I would say those are the two main things. And then you can start slow. Like you can have your baby. Some babies don't want to sit in a high chair right away. So you can have them sit on your lap. So you're creating that comfortable, safe space for them while they're at the table. And something I love to do as the babies become older babies is just removing the front tray that's usually attached to the high chair and just bringing them close to the dinner table. So they feel included, they feel part of the family meal, they don't feel isolated and secluded in the corner. Everybody comes together. And I think it's those little things that make really a big difference in the whole mealtime experience.
Yeah, it makes it a fun, enjoyable experience, taking the kind of some of that stress or emotional pressure away, disassociating that from eating.
Yes. I mean, it's a
separate.
social experience, right? And sometimes we forget when it comes to infants, we think about nutrition, it's about calories and it's about the right nutrients. And we just forget about what about the pleasure of eating? And that's something I've really tried to reemphasize with families. I remember your fondest memories. And what did that look like, right? It wasn't being force fed or spoon fed, or it was just you being relaxed, able to enjoy yourself, able to make choices, right? Feel like you have the freedom, and then you're seeing everybody else happy around you.
Yeah, I love that. And so if there's one piece of advice that you could give to new parents who are maybe feeling overwhelmed about feeding their baby, what would that be?
I would say it's an evolving process. It's a journey. So when we remind ourselves of that, we don't fixate just on that moment in time. We know that there's stages and there's levels and things are going to happen and you're going through the motions too. So think of it as, you're never going to be stuck in that period forever, which sometimes can feel like it is. But every stage has its beauty and every stage has its challenge. And if you do have that support around you, I think, again, having that compassion for yourself and your child and really trusting yourself and trusting your child really makes for such a beautiful, healthy relationship that just makes the whole parenting experience better.
Yeah, it touches on self-trust. And then especially when it comes to food too, you're listening to yourself because you're trusting your own body. You're asking it what it needs and you're not forcing anything. So That's really great. Argavan, what final thoughts do you want to leave us with?
I just want to say that everyone will say embrace the journey, and that is probably more true than ever when it comes to parenting. But also know that there is support out there, that you are not meant to do this alone. And there are people that you will find that is a great fit for you, that you feel that you're going to be empowered in your parenting journey, because at the end of the day, we want happy, healthy parents who are raising happy, healthy children.
Wonderful. Where can people find out more about you?
I have a website, babystepsnutrition.com. I'm on Instagram, Baby Steps Nutrition. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn. I have some things on YouTube, even though it's not active, but you can find a lot of my Instagram lives there. It's something that Sarah and I have done together. And then you can find the Baby Steps Nutrition podcast on wherever you listen to your podcast. I would love a rating, a review. I would love people to reach out. I'm very open. And so any questions you have, it is very easy to find me. So I'm
Great.
able to do so.
Perfect. Will do. Thank you so much for being a wonderful guest on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You can subscribe to this podcast in order to hear more from us. Thank you for listening, everyone, and I hope you'll join us next time on the fourth trimester. The theme music on this podcast was created by Sean Trott. Hear more at soundcloud.com/Sean Trott. Special thanks to my true loves, my husband Ben, daughter Penelope, and baby girl Evelyn. Don't forget to share the fourth trimester podcast with any new and expecting parents. I'm Sarah Trott. Goodbye for now.
Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing all that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I'll sing a song for you. You got your wheels, you got your gears. You ride around town without any fear. You got your pedals, you got your brakes. You always wear your helmet for safety's sake. Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing all that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I sing a song for you. Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing the best that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I sing a song for you.